Hey everybody, welcome to eChannel News. We've got Zur. He's the VP of Security and Research at a company called XM Cyber, and they've been doing a little bit of research to figure out what's going on. Why are we still getting attacked so much? And we're going to dig into that a little bit and find out what these good folks do. Zur, welcome. How are you?
Hi everyone, thank you for joining here. I'm really excited. It's one I didn't do a lot of podcasts. I really like them. I hear a lot, so really excited to be here. And thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Hey, the future is we need to listen to the people who are behind the solutions, not the brands anymore. That's the world we're living in now. So welcome. So as the VP of Security Research, first of all, tell me a bit about XM Cyber. What does the company do?
Sure. So we are a cybersecurity company. We mainly focus on something we're calling APM, which is an attack path management solution, which allow organization to gain a general overview of what's going on anything related to the organization, what is going on from their enterprise environment, what is going on their cloud environment, what is going on in their Kubernetes environments. And also we are tying everything together. So we can simulate how an attacker can jump from the enterprise environment to the cloud environment, go into the Kubernetes clusters that he is holding, and then jumping back to the cloud and actually connecting all the different silos that organizations are seeing by multiple other security products into one solution that allow you to see what is going on and where you need to put your focus on. Because one of the main issues that big organizations suffer from is the lack of time and lack of employees. They do not have thousands of security engineers that allows them to remediate and make their environment more mature, and they waste a lot of time on fixing the wrong things. So the main agenda of XM is to allow organizations to prioritize their remediations, where they need to put their effort on, and how they should do it.
Sounds easy, Zur, but I'm sure it's not that easy to build, is it?
No, do you see I'm tired?
Yeah, well, I think every person in the cyber world is working some crazy hours in this game we're playing. It's like this cat and mouse game with the bad actors and good actors and trying to figure out what they're going to do next and how to counter that. Well, good luck, my friend. So let's dig into this a little bit. First of all, Zur, your background. How did you get into this crazy world?
So I was a programmer at the military services for quite some years. Then I went for EY, where I was doing penetration testing, red teaming. Then I evolved myself, managed red teamers over there, and so on. Then I came to XM Cyber. I'm actually working for around 5 years now at XM. Started from the bottom as a security researcher, and started to evolve with the company growth till now. Now I'm leading all the research aspect of the company. We were acquired a few years ago by Schwarz Group. And now I'm mainly responsible for anything related to the security and to the value that our customers are getting from the product, both from the attacker perspective, how an attacker should attack, how it is performed behind the scene, and also from the defender perspective, how we should defend it, how we should detect it, how we should remediate it, and so on. So yeah, that's on short what I did.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see, your journey and, coming from the military background and stuff. It seems like you get a lot of experience there. And it's really great to see the company, promoting from within, right? As you start. And so that's a really great sign of a good company. So whoever is running the show there, congrats.
Definitely.
So you found that, security threats are, a lot of it is by misconfigurations. So dig into this. What did you find?
So our solution actually covers 3 different types of exposures. First one is vulnerabilities, where we are simulating which vulnerabilities you have in your environment, and we're digging a lot into them to make sure that you are not only vulnerable, we're actually validating that an attacker can actually exploit the vulnerability within your environment. So this is one of the big differences. But vulnerability is only one category that we cover. We're also working on misconfigurations. Those can be configurations related to your operating system, configurations related to your cloud environment, configurations related to your Active Directory environment, where in some situation, if it's not configured properly, an attacker can actually abuse those bad configurations in order to start and move laterally, start to harvest credentials, start to make bad things in your environment. And we also cover this type of things. And lastly, we're also covering what we're calling user behavior. We have the capability to see anything that happened in your environment. And because of that, we can actually see and monitor some weird behaviors on your environment. For example, every Saturday night, there is a backup process that connects to all of your machines in your environment. It's spreaded a lot of credentials in your environment, and it's bad because then a real attacker can harvest those credentials and go over and do anything you want in your environment. So we are covering these three types of different exposures. We have a lot of customers and we have a lot of data. So around 2 years ago, we started what we're calling the impact report or the exposure report, where we're looking into our customers' data and we are looking for different insights. What are the major problems that organizations suffer from? What are the differences between different types of exposures? What we see more, what we see less? And those reports allow us to actually see and understand what organizations suffer from, what is difficult for them to fix and remediate. And it also helps us to prioritize things better internally within our company to evolve the product to fit the needs of our customers based on that. And we also want to share it with the world because I believe that those insights are really insightful and they share light on more things that are not properly covered these days.
Well, thank you, because this information, security is no longer a silo game. If everybody keeps it for themselves, then well, congratulations, you win temporarily, right? Because the rest of us will die. So you've got to really share this intel. So configurations in specific. So you're thinking that 80% of the problems can be reduced if we just become better at configuring and managing this better. So what's the challenge?
So I can go over with some stats from
Yes.
the report of what we saw back there. And to me, it's not that surprising, but I'm sure that anyone that reads that report might be a bit surprised. Today, the vulnerability management area is something that every organization is working on. Every organization actually using different tools for that. Every organization employs different security engineers to help remediate vulnerabilities in the environment. And one of the stats that we saw is that organizations suffer around, in average, they have around 15,000 exposures in their environment. And out of that, around 1% of those vulnerabilities, only 1% of the 15,000 exposures that you have actually poses risk to their critical assets. What does it mean? It means that a lot of organizations have an internal process of patch management internally. They do it, they work hard on it. And in addition, they might waste time remediate vulnerabilities that do not affect the critical assets. Even though a machine might be vulnerable to something, if it doesn't lead to a critical asset, to something sensitive that poses risk to your organization, it should be less prioritized. Compared to that, we are seeing that a lot of your exposures related to your Active Directory configuration. Around 80% of the exposures we saw related to Active Directory. And Active Directory is something major organizations are using that for a very long time, but yet fixing things and having internal processes to continuously monitor your Active Directory security is something that is not that prioritized. And we can see the big difference between the amount of exposures related to vulnerabilities, where you have some patch management process internally compared to Active Directory. It's a big difference. Another very interesting stats is related to credentials. We're seeing a lot of credentials spread in your environment. Those credentials allows an attacker that can harvest them to move easily, literally within your organization. And it's really tough to fix it. The problem with credentials is that it contains humans that are working with them. It's not only something programmatic and application, something that the computer does. It's something that the exposure is also related to how the human behind it is using it. And because of that, it's tougher to remediate, it's tougher to fix. And we're actually seeing this kind of stats coming in our last impact report that we did last year. And similar numbers came this year, because this is truly something hard to remediate. So yes, I think those are actually nice things to see, because organization waste a lot of time remediating vulnerabilities, working on vulnerabilities, but only 1% of all the vulnerabilities are leading to critical assets. So they are wasting time. They are working on stuff that do not make their security more mature. And this is bad. I don't like it.
Well, look, I mean, obviously the best thing is let's fix the 1% first, and then let's work on the rest. You know, you got to prioritize. And in anything,
Definitely.
you know, if you have a car, motorcycle, airplane, you know, you got to fix the things that's going to cause you to crash. Right? Let's get the brakes fixed first. All right, then we'll worry about the wipers. You know, yeah, there's lots of priorities in this world, and I think because it's coming to us in a kind of an avalanche, in a wave, right? We're not able to figure out like what is really bad, right? And identifying that is obviously the mission that we need to do. Still credentials, right? I mean, you got the credentials being stolen. We also have the internal threats with credentials being sold. So it's one of those things that I think we may never be able to adjust. I know there's some things called dynamic management, so that you can look at the behaviors of the humans. So you can at least know that, you know, if you see me logging into my system on a Saturday, well, that's definitely not Julian, because he's just not there. So there are those things. And highlighting that, you know, during the weekends, Friday, 5 o'clock and onwards, when the bad actors go dress and go to work, with less humans are looking at it. So there's these challenges, but beyond the, you know, monitoring of the credentials to prevent this sort of identity theft, right? So they can get into it. I mean, you also got to balance this with, if you make this so difficult for the humans to access the system, then they're going to go, well, at which point do we work and not work, right? Because maybe there's like 10-factor authentication, right? And they have like 4 phones, and you have to click the one, then the next, and the next, and you have a private one, and I don't know, maybe then one is a thumbprint next to an iris, and at some point it becomes so secure that not even the user can get in. So there's this balance. How do you balance this?
So this is definitely something huge, because if I will make my employee so hard to work, it won't work. And this is something that any organization do not want to do. But you need to make and create a tiering system, and to make some thinking before doing that. So first you need to categorize what are your servers, what are your most critical servers, and what are just regular systems, regular machines like employee workstations and so on. And each different tier represent different security level. And for the most critical systems, to the most critical servers, it will be tougher to log in. But that's crucial, that's good. But you do not log and work by yourself all the time on those kind of servers, because they're very sensitive. If you will make something bad and they will crash, your boss is going to yell on you. You do not want to do it. So it's okay to have hard mechanisms in order to authenticate to the most critical servers. But if you want to just log into your PC, then it should be something pretty straightforward with some MFA and so on. It's also crucial to make a separation between different types of tiering. So once I'm logging to, let's assume tier the workstation tiering area, I will use one credential. This will be my credentials to authenticate to non-sensitive environments. And once I'm logging into something sensitive, I would use a different credential. That way, if I will by mistake became a victim to phishing attack, for example, and someone will be able to harvest my credential, it will be my low tier system credential. It won't be on the same risk as compromising my high tier credentials. But again, this is something tough to achieve. It's hard to do it.
Yeah.
There are more things that you can do related to credentials and the way the operating system hold them and caching them. There are some security measurements provided by the operating system. So there are some solutions for Windows and for Linux and also for Mac that you can put in place in order to make things a bit better from the hygiene area. So if an attacker would get to your machine, you do not want to have strong credentials cached there. So there are some mechanism and security measurements that you can configure in order to do it. And lastly, there are vendors that helps you to manage your credentials. There are some big vendors in this area that allows you to automatically changing your password after every authentication, for example. But yes, this is something tough to do on a big organization where you have 500,000 of users. Then it's tough to do it.
There's always going to be some. There's always going to be a few that's going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Exactly.
The reality is that it's also a point of affordability, right, sir? It's really great, to have the absolute best protection, but some companies just sort of can't afford to have the ultimate solution protection. So it's a sort of a business decision where you look at the risk, your appetite for risk. Are you able to live with this? That type of thing, and you do as best you can with the affordability that you have, and you hope that it's sort of enough, right? Because at the end of the day, I think if the bad actors want to get in, they're gonna double down and find some way. If you had to give advice, because a lot of the channel partners, right, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, as they say. They get all the information from the vendors and reports like from user, here's what we got to do because here's why and all that stuff. And so they're loaded up with this information. And then they go to knock on the doors of the customer and go, okay, here, your challenge is misconfigurations. You got to patch these things better. You got to have proper credentials. And these 3 people that start accessing your main family jewels, they're going to have a pain to get in, but it's also going to protect you, and that's what we got to do, and we got to do this now, right? And then the question usually comes back as well, what is this going to cost me, right? Because they kind of understand it increases their protection, and then they go, there's a price, that's kind of expensive, I'm not sure I could do that, you know what I mean? And then in other words, the MSP is challenged in making the case to the customer. And, as they say in this world, right, you can tell people don't eat fast food. It's not good for you. Yet they're eating a lot of fast food and a lot of stuff that comes in boxes and cans. And the reality is that the culture, it's a cultural challenge, right? Then it's a money challenge. And these are very, very powerful pushbacks. What advice would you give to these companies and these people who are challenged with making this case?
Yeah. Also, I can definitely agree with you. At the end of the day, someone created a company, is leading a company, and he's not a security guy. He doesn't know what is security. He knows how to do fintech, for example. He doesn't know anything related to security. And because of that, he probably have a CISO or some kind of a security officer that helps him understand the risk to their systems. But at first, even with our customers, first you need to map what are your critical assets. You have a lot of different assets in your organization, but some of them are more critical and some of them are less critical. If someone will get hands on server A, for example, the organization might say, yeah, okay, not the end of the world. I might lose something, but it's not that critical to me. But if someone will get to my sensitive database that contains all of my manufacturing algorithm, this is a disaster. So after mapping those critical assets, then you need to start map the threats towards them. You need to map what can be done against those critical assets, and then also make some prioritization. What is more logical and more realistic to happen, and what is less realistic to happen. And then after doing that, you will have a map of what is critical to me, what is the most critical attack paths or attack vectors toward those critical assets. And then this will allow you to understand where you should put your effort on, what you should invest on, and depends on your budget. It will allow you to see what kind of solution you can get into that. But there are some solutions that you can do even without vendors. You can use a lot of the things you can use from that might come from your operating system. Microsoft, even though they have lots of vulnerabilities, they're working all the day to help you secure your environment. They have a lot of security measurements that allows and try to make the life of attackers hard. So that's my most, I think, crucial tip would be just map what's critical to you.
It makes you know what? It's a simple advice, but it's also the most important advice actually, because people who run companies, they understand mission critical. They know what's important. That's their job, right? We're going after this product, this market now. Not that one later on next year. I mean, they prioritize that. That's what they do. They prioritize their go-to-market constantly. And that changes depending on the year, depending on the market conditions, depending on the appetite of the customers. I mean, there's so many factors, and their job is to, steer the ship to that North Star. So talking about, where the mission critical stuff is probably, the first thing, because I think they would recognize, wait a minute, what happens if this stuff does get out?
Exactly.
We could go bankrupt, right?
Exactly.
So maybe that's worth to stop, breathe, and figure out how to fix it. So that's some really, really great advice. Is there anything else that you're finding? I mean, when you sit back and you look at the whole threat landscape, and you've got all these actors and bad actors in different countries, and you've got state actors, and you got ransomware as a service, and you have anybody who has $69 can fire up a ransomware service business, and you have so many. It's becoming easier now than AI is making the really bad actors look much better. So the volume of attacks are increasing, the sophistication is increasing. You sit back, you look at it. What are you thinking? Oh my God.
No, so I think I always, and this is also my job, to say, okay, what can we do? What can we do to try to prevent it? What can we do to make sure that if someone comes in, you will have really tough time to do something? I think when I just sitting and relaxing and saying, okay, where are the places that are less mature today from security perspective? Then I think it comes out to the cloud environment. So we know it's not something new that organization keeps migrating their on-premises services to the cloud. They're doing that for, I don't know, more than a decade, I think. Every year, you're hear everyone saying, organization keep migrating to the cloud, organization keep migrating to the cloud. But now at some point, if you go back, then you are seeing that there is some lack of experience within the cloud environment. This is also some nice insights from our report. If you as an attacker would gain your foothold into the cloud, I think even before that, the amount of critical assets that resides in your cloud environment is around 50-60%. If I will be accurate, it's 56% according to our report, but let's say 50 to 60%. Then, do you have an idea how many how many attacks the attacker would need to do once he gained his initial foothold into your cloud environment in order to compromise some of those critical assets?
Interesting.
So today, according to our reports, it's around 2 ops. It means that the attacker does 2 different attacks, 2 different attack techniques in your cloud environment, and he can gain his hands to a lot of critical assets. If we will compare it to the enterprise environment, in the enterprise environment today, it's much tougher. It's not that straightforward. So the maturity in the cloud environment is still somewhere that need to gain some progress. We're also starting to see more and more cloud attacks being published. So we're seeing a lot of things related to Okta. Back then, we saw the SolarWinds. This was one of the major cloud attacks that was published on all over the news, and we keep seeing those kind of things coming today. And as I said, because organizations are not fully using the cloud, they are still using the enterprise environment, it also opens another attack vector that an attacker from the enterprise environment might counter a cloud environment. In our research, one of the things that we wanted to see, okay, how many organizations suffer from those kind of attack vectors? And then what we saw is that around 70% of the organization that we examined have some exposures that allows the attacker to jump from the enterprise environment to the cloud environment. And then, as I said, within the cloud environment, with only 2 ops, if I will say it, so everyone will be able to understand. It's very easy for the attacker, once he gains your cloud environment, to start compromise your critical assets. So those are kind of things that when I lay back, I'm saying, okay, organization need to start paying more and more attention to that.
Interesting. Because, for some reason, the myth was if you migrate to the cloud, it's somehow because it's, in the various big players, right? They've got it all locked up. It's secure. No one can get into there, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you are responsible for your own security when you go into the cloud, exactly the same way you're responsible for your own security on your on-prem stuff. There is no difference. And if you misconfigure the things that is managing all that stuff in the cloud, well, you're, even as you clearly pointed out, sir, you're more vulnerable if you don't, pay attention. It's a challenge that is going to be there. We'll see how it progresses in the future. I know a lot of people are working like you guys to, push back and solve the problem for the mere mortals, the humans that's out there. So Godspeed to you guys to continue what you're doing. Thank you. I'll leave you with the last word. What do you want? Is there anything else in the report you want to talk about? And how did people get access to it, and your website address?
So our website address is xmcyber.com. You can go in there. You will see pretty fast over there something related to the exposure report that we did. It was a mutual report we did with Cyentia Institute that allowed us to also analyze and give some objective insights, because I am, as much as I want, less objective related to XM Cyber. So we use Cyentia, which are actually really great people, and they were objectively looked at the data and allowed us to gain some objective results and insights. So everything is on our website. There are actually way more insights than the things that I shared in here. In the report, there are a lot of them. And of course, if anyone would read it and have any kind of questions, I'm available on Twitter, LinkedIn. You can email me by using the website. So I'm also free to help and talk with anyone that wants.
Very good. Well, Zur, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thanks for bringing the information to the world. And because this is the kind of stuff we all need to share, because I think at the end of the day, we all need to get on the same page. We all need to understand how the enemy plays. And the more we understand how the enemy plays, then we can then start to understand how we can better protect ourselves. If we don't understand those basic things, how do we protect ourselves? We could keep doing things that doesn't really matter, like all the other 99% of the things that's great to do, but we then forget the front door unlocked, so
Definitely.
let's do the
You,
right
you
thing.
do not have a lot of time, but you need to move the needle. If you're working and
Absolutely.
not moving the needle, you're just wasting time, money, and at the end of the day, if you will get breached, it won't end good for you.
Yeah, you become a sitting duck, as we say. All right. Thank you, Zur. It's been a pleasure. Keep us posted. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.